I'm going to beat the Trow Chambers on half a heart to prove that the Trow Chambers are easy. This means one shot from a skeleton, one swipe from a zombie, or one fart from a breeze, and I'm dead. To make this challenge even harder, I'm going to be going into the Trow Chambers with absolutely no items. This means no totems to give me another life, no enchanted golden apples to give me an extra 8 hearts, and no protection 4 netherite armor to reduce the amount of damage I take. This was around my 5th ever Trow Chamber that I've visited, so there's a 0% chance I die. Okay, that was just a fluke. I won't be able to beat the Trow Chambers on half a heart with pure combat skills. To complete this challenge, I will have to use my brain. Lesson number 1. Don't take on spawners with pure combat. It's too risky, and if I get hit once, I'm dead. I remembered the footage from earlier that the spawner only spawned mobs once there were no blocks in between the player and the spawner. Lesson number 2. Spawners only activate when the center of the block is in sight. This means I can place blocks on the corners to cut line of sight and neutralize the spawner. Lesson number 3. Spawners only have a range of 14 blocks. You can look at spawners from a distance without activating them. I combined that strategy with another idea I came up with on the spot. I placed blocks 1 block above the spawner to suffocate the mobs. I don't know exactly why I thought it would work, but it did. Lesson number 4. Spawners can spawn mobs with blocks on their head and they will suffocate. The only problem is it took a few minutes to set up for each spawner. Lesson number 5. The blocks under the spawner show what kind of spawner it is. Different mobs have different strengths and weaknesses, so knowing what kind of spawner it is can be important. The breeze is new, the chisel tough blocks are new. Silverfish, stone bricks. Stone bricks spawn in strongholds. Slime, moss blocks. Both are green squares. Zombie, mossy cobblestone. Dungeons have mossy cobblestone. Baby zombie, half mossy cobblestone, half size of regular zombie. Husk, sand. Skeletons, bones. Stray, ice. Bogged, bone blocks, and red mushroom. Red mushrooms are the poisonous variant of something, so it's the poisoned skeleton. Spider, stone with webs. Cave spider, webs and red mushroom. As I said earlier, red mushroom means poisonous variant. Cave spider is just a poisonous version of a spider. I didn't learn all of them right then, but I did learn that web equals spider. I did a lot more testing in creative, and I learned even more about the spawner. Lesson number 6. Spawners can only spawn mobs within 3 blocks of the spawner. And lesson number 7. Spawners have to have line of sight to the place where mobs spawn. I use this information to make a setup that uses 5 blocks. It's just a regular covered spawner with the block below the spawner missing. The current setup only works on some of the mobs. I first used chests to manually hit the mobs, but that would put me in danger of random projectiles that spawn. I then came up with the idea of using magma or water to kill 1 block tall mobs. Lesson number 8. If possible, get under the spawner and mine through the corners beside the spawner to block the spawner off. At this point, I could loot an entire structure without dying. When chargers Lesson 9 is knowing the layout of the trial chambers. Every trial chamber starts off with an entrance that goes straight into a corridor. And then from that corridor, it goes into an intersection with a chamber to the left and another corridor to the right. If the intersection is the prison variant, then the chamber will be on the right and the corridor will be on the left. Continuing straight along the corridor, there will be another chamber straight ahead. And then on each wall of each corridor, there's a 50% chance-ish that there's a chamber adjacent. For my final attempt, I'll show each room type once, and then I'll show you how I conquered that specific kind of room. In the first room of the trial chambers, which I'll be calling the entrance, there are no spawners, which means it's one of the few rooms that are peaceful. There's usually wood, so I usually start off with gathering all that wood for a crafting table and extra stuff. There's also usually a trial vault somewhere in the room. The next room is one of the two corridors. If you walk on the left or the right walkways, then you won't activate the spawner until you're right beside it. This means I can block off the spawner while behind the pillars. Once the spawner is surrounded in blocks, I dig underneath the spawner to break the block right below the spawner and have a setup that suffocates the mobs. The ominous vault will always be above the massive staircase, unless if you're in the water room, then it's below the massive staircase. And there's also one room with 4 pillars that just doesn't have an ominous vault. This is the first room where I showcase the strategy of going underneath the spawner to neutralize it. I dig up through the 2 corners, and on each corner I place 2 blocks beside the spawner. The ominous vault is on the top layer away from the spawner. This chamber is my least favorite to encounter because of how open the bottom is, and there isn't any space to go under the spawners. This means it's really hard to not activate a spawner. The way I've found to neutralize the spawners is just a ton of block placing, which does get annoying. The ominous vault will always be right above the breeze spawner. The breeze spawner is the spawner that's a couple blocks above the ground level. In this room, I neutralize the breeze spawner from below. After that, I mine through the staircase to the second spawner. Once again, I use the neutralize from below strategy. Looking at the breeze spawner from the skeleton spawner, the ominous vault is to the left. First, I dig down to the bottom level with the powdered snow. I make my way over to the central pedestal I dig in, then I neutralize the spawner from below. Any other spawners I see, I do the exact same thing. Go underneath them, and then neutralize from below. In the intersection rooms, there are no spawners, but in 2 of the 3 kinds there is an ominous vault. The tall intersection is the one without an ominous vault.
Really?
In this room, I would use the F11 trick to look at where the spawner is above. I would neutralize it from below and go up to the next level. I would repeat this 3 times for all 4 spawners. Sometimes I would use water just in case if I fell. Just like every room, I would break the block below the spawner to make the skeletons suffocate. The ominous vault is always on the top level. In this room, I pretty much only use the F11 trick to locate spawners. And because there's already an area below the spawners, then I can easily neutralize from below. The ominous vault is always on the top level. Finally, we can get a mace. It took me all this time to get a mace. This was the, I think, 4th trial chamber. I have 9 enchanted apples, 4 golden apples, almost, you know what? I'm gonna make a full set of diamond armor. I have a full set of diamond armor. I finally did it. I got a mace and full diamond armor in the process. So, did I prove that the trial chambers were easy? Well, at the start, it was difficult, and I couldn't really get anywhere. But as time went on, it got easier and easier. The trial chambers didn't get easier as I played more of them. I just learnt more and got better at raiding the trial chambers. And hopefully after this video, you'll also be better at raiding the trial chambers. Now that I've beaten the trial chambers on half a heart, now there's actually no other way to make these more difficult. What? There is?